Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got some folks that have joined us online. We have a couple folks here at PART as well. I think I have everyone unmuted on my end. You may be muted on your end. We're going to do a little welcome and introduction here in just a few moments. If you're having some issues, try calling 336-420-1125, and that will get you to Walter, one of our IT folks, and he may be able to assist you. If it's just a matter of you can't speak, like I say, I hope I have everyone unmuted. Check your phone to make sure that it is unmuted too. Let me jump right in and hopefully advance the slide. Yeah. My name is Mark Kirshner. I'm the project manager for Piedmont Together, and we welcome you to our Federal Partner Update webinar today. It's been an exciting couple of years working on this project. As you'll learn, or probably already know, this project was made possible through HUD, through their Office of Sustainable Housing and Communities, and their regional planning grant program that they have. We were a 2010 grantee. I was at a recent convening of grantees back at the close of last year, and we were reminded that we have, in our case, not only state partners, but also federal partners that are part of this project, and that it was a good idea to, once you have something to really tell them, which we do now, to try to put them in the loop, make sure that they know what's going on. So we're going to be doing some of that today, and I'll talk a little bit more about the purpose and goal of today's meeting in just a moment. The way we're going to do introductions is we're going to go in the room here around first, and I'm going to call out an agency and then let you respond if you're from that agency. And then we hope to be able to hear from y'all online about who is here. And again, we'll sort of do a roll call of agencies, and if you work with that agency, please speak up and let us know which agency you're with. And maybe tell us if you're familiar with the Piedmont Triad at all, if we could do that in the room here too. And then if we happen to miss anyone in the end, please jump in. So let me ask Kyle to start off here.
All right, my name is Kyle Laird. I am with the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation, assigned to quite a few tasks with the regional project, and I'm here to help out Mark.
Right.
I'm Randy Gore, State Director for Rural Development, USDA here in North Carolina, responsible for administering about 43 different programs to assist rural communities throughout the state. Thanks for having me here.
I'm Ioana Dabney with the Federal Highway Administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation, and I'm the Planning and Program Development Manager for the North Carolina Division. My group oversees statewide and metropolitan planning throughout North Carolina, in addition to air quality conformity planning and congestion management.
I'm Scott Ryan with Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation. I'm the Executive Director here at PART, and want to just very openly welcome everybody here, as well as those folks online, for this very exciting project that's rapidly moving forward, and all the folks involved that has really already shown some great successes in collaboration that's gone on with this. So thank you for all of that, and please stay engaged as long as we can to have some real meaningful success as this whole project continues to move forward.
I'm Emily Williams from HUD. I'm located here in Greensboro in the Greensboro Field Office. As a part of my responsibilities, I serve as a sustainability officer, and I've worked closely with HUD ever since the inception of this grant. In fact, even before the inception, I was part of a review team and reviewed applications that were submitted to our office applications, other than those, of course, submitted by organizations in North Carolina. We now have 5 sustainable communities regional four sustainable communities regional planning grantees in North Carolina, and 1 community challenge in North Carolina, 2 DOT community challenge grants. So we have a total of 7 sustainability grants in North Carolina. We award about $11 million. So we're very happy and proud of the emphasis that the state has placed on sustainability.
Good afternoon. This is Paul Crone. I'm the Regional Planning Director with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, and we have partnered with PART on this project, helped to write the application, and are providing a lot of the technical assistance, and we're happy to welcome you this afternoon.
Okay, we're going to jump online, and I think I'm getting everyone unmuted here so that they can talk. Anyone else with USDA on the line with us? Okay, EPA.
Hi, this is Anne Keller in Atlanta in Region 4's office. I'm the Senior Sustainability Advisor, and I've been working with a good number of the HUD Regional Planning Grants as part of the Partnership for Sustainable Communities for the last several years now. And we've done some workshops in support of these grants and provided other funding and technical assistance. So I'm glad to be on the call and look forward to hearing about it. Thanks.
Anyone with FEMA? Okay, anyone else with federal highways? FTA? HUD? Department of Labor?
Hi, this is Gene. I'm getting feedback.
Gene, do you have your using your speakers on your laptop?
No.
Okay. And you're with the Department of Labor?
Employment and Training Administration.
Okay. You familiar with the Piedmont Triad at all, Gene?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Anyone else with US DOT? Any other departments in there? Okay. How about our state partners? Julie, why don't you start?
Sure. This is Julie Hunkins from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and I am the manager of the Quality Enhancement Unit. I have been working with PART and the Piedmont Together Project since its beginning, and I serve as one of the DOT liaisons. I have specifically participated in some of the outreach efforts and also on the mobility and the energy climate change work groups.
And Libby?
Yes, this is Libby Smith from the Department of Commerce. I'm getting feedback here, and I'm just happy to be here and hear the updates from you, Mark.
Okay, thanks. We also have a Lee Mertens. Lee, can you hear us? Lee, you're with? Okay, Lee, we can't, sounds like we can sort of hear you back there. I hope that you can hear us. Like I say, we are recording this, so hopefully we can archive it and you can go back and listen to it if you need to. We're going to jump in with just a little bit of general introduction here. This whole idea of sustainability is kind of the catchword of the day. I hope maybe that stopped some of the echoing there. We put y'all on mute, so hope that took care of that. Sustainability is not new. It is kind of the catchword phrase of the day. In some ways, I feel like it might be slowly being replaced by resiliency. For those grantees that are working on these projects, sustainability had a sort of a bad taste to it due to something called UN Agenda 21, and we're not going to get into that at all. But I like the word sustainability. We hung on to it as part of our project name for a while, and through part of a rebranding have now dropped it. But one of the reasons that I wanted to sort of touch on this just very briefly, and this is part of a general talk that I'll give about our project, is that picture in the lower left-hand corner. And in our region that you'll hear, we have a lot of mill villages, and mill villages were really the first sustainable communities in my mind, particularly here in the South. You had your employment, your social, your residential, your market. Everything kind of connects together, and we realized that early on. Although we often talk about a transportation work group or a housing work group, everyone quickly understood that there's a lot of connections between everything. If you're not familiar with the Piedmont Triad, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about where we're located and how we considered ourselves this 12-county region. Up in the upper left is a map that shows regions from across the country. So we are smack dab in the middle of North Carolina, and part of what's also referred to as the Piedmont Crescent that stretches from the Raleigh Triangle area through the Triad down to the Charlotte area, and then you can see that metropolitan area continues to stretch down and even reaches down into the Atlanta area. For us locally, there's some political reasons why we are these 12 counties, and one of them is that the state is divided into 7 different economic development regions, and our region is there in blue, the Piedmont Triad, and it consists of 12 counties, which we'll take a closer look at in a second. So there's some national reasons why we're looked at as one of these metropolitan regions. Then there's some political reasons why it's these 12 counties. But the graphic there in the center bottom really points out from a geography standpoint why we are a region. You can note the Charlotte area and the lower left-hand side there, and then the triangle area over on the right, and we are there in the middle. These are commuting patterns, and the wider, thicker the line is, the more people there are commuting between those counties. And you can clearly see the 3 regions that make up the Piedmont Crescent. And you can, again, clearly see that for 2 of our counties, where Guilford County and Forsyth, where Greensboro and Winston-Salem and High Point are located, those are our 2 main counties. And they get most of the in-commute traffic into the Triad. This is a little bit of a zoom up on the 12 counties that make up the Piedmont Triad. In addition to those 12 counties, we also have to work with 68 other cities and towns throughout the region. The darker blue circles are our county seats within each of those counties, and all those other blue dots are incorporated towns and cities within the region. So we find it one of our challenges is communication. There's 1.6 million people in the region, as well as all these different municipalities and cities and towns. And I did a calculation in terms of number of elected officials there are, but I can't remember what it was. But you can imagine there's a lot of elected officials for us to have to be communicating with. As far as some stats for the Piedmont Triad, we lost a little bit over 100,000 manufacturing jobs. Our economy was built on textiles, manufacturing, and tobacco. And during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we lost quite a few jobs. The good news is we've added a lot of jobs in some of the traditional growth sectors, education, as well as health jobs here. So we are slowly part of the recovery. The other thing of interest, as you can tell from that commuting pattern, is that 65% of the jobs are located in Guilford and Forsyth, and we really don't see that changing. I know that all the outlying rural counties will be able to get some of those jobs as well as residents in the future, but this number here is probably not going to change too much. At least we don't believe so. 70% of our housing is single family. There's not a great mix of multi-use or other multifamily type housing, particularly outside of our larger urban areas, and we see that as something that can be a challenge for our region. And then we're projected to grow about 400,000 people by 2040. Our out commuters there, again, 30% of the people in the region wake up every morning and get in their car, usually by themselves, and head to work. On average, 34% of our household income is spent on transportation here in the region, 52% when you combine housing cost and transportation. So 52% on average of our household income is spent on those two areas. And then 81% of the people in our region really have no other choice than to jump into their car. They have a choice maybe to carpool, but really 81% have no other choices in terms of transit or other viable means to get to work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle Laird, and he's going to walk us through a little bit about the project process.
Hi, everybody. First off, I want to mention again the what Mark mentioned, the rebranding. Not too long ago, last fall, we had a regional summit, and at that regional summit, we asked the folks to vote on a new name, and so that is our name now, Piedmont Together, Choices, Opportunities, Solutions, that you see there at the top. Again, there's another map of the region of the 12 counties. The two principal partners in this process are PART, the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation, and the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. When we first applied for this grant, PART was one of two regional organizations, agencies, and the PTRC was actually two separate organizations. Since then, the PTRC, those two organizations merged to form the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, which was quite an accomplishment for those regional councils, the two separate ones. So that's how we're kind of set up. I don't know if all of you know, but there are 94 regions across the country that receive the regional HUD grants for sustainable communities, and we're really lucky to be part of that count. Other than those first two primary partners right there that are on the slide, we have 48 COC members. The COC is the Consortium Oversight Committee. That's made up of largely of towns, other municipalities in the region, and nonprofits and other organizations region-wide. So it's a pretty good group. It's still growing, and we expect more to sign on. A few months into the project, maybe about 8 months or so, we started public forums, and where we visited each of the counties at least once. Guilford County we visited twice with 2 public forums because there are 2 separate large municipalities in Guilford County. But in those public forums, one of the things we wanted to identify was what the public thought were our main strengths and challenges. So here you have a list of the top strengths and challenges that came from those public forums. We did not, we were glad of, but we did not, as Mark has said many times before, we did not stack the deck and have lack of transportation choices come up to the top by something we finagled. That actually came from the participants in those public forums, but it is very very true for our region. Forest University, the School of Medicine there. Scenic and recreational resources is something that came out quite a lot, not only in the rural counties where a lot of those resources are located, but also is identified in the urban counties as well. Moving on, one of the parts of this project that is really kind of a neat way that HUD and their partners have set up things is they allow for each of the grantees to apply for other assistance as we go along, and one of those are the building blocks program through EPA. And we applied for an EPA building block program for design and development charrettes, and we received that. The town that we chose for that was Asheboro. You see on the left side of that slide is the sketching, the aerial sort of view of the design that the folks that EPA hired came and worked with the folks in Asheboro to come up with. We have taken that EPA building block design and kind of changed it a little bit, but not too much, and we're going to take it out to 5 other communities in the region. We've already been to Elkin, which you see the drawings and the computer mock-up there on the right side, and we're getting ready to take it to Mayodan, which is a small town in Rockingham County, next week, and then 3 others over the next few months. So jumping back to the strengths and challenges, we took those strengths and challenges from the public forums, and we worked with them and worked over them and came up with what we called reasons to care, and then we take those reasons to care and then move on into our visioning. And what we decided to do is come up with narratives as well as modeling to take to the public as we go on throughout the project. And what we're using for the modeling, also returning to those tools that HUD has come up with for the grantees to use, Envision Tomorrow, which is a modeling tool out from Fregonese, which is a company out in Portland. We're going to combine that Envision Tomorrow tool with Community Viz to come up with our modeling. And one of the great things about Community Viz is that the Charlotte area and the Triangle also use Community Viz, and that will help us kind of create, using the same modeling tool throughout the whole crescent of North Carolina, where most of our population is located. All right, there's a lot of stuff left to do. When we started off and applied for the grant, we really set the bar high for ourselves, and that you can see these next 2 slides actually have a long list of things that we have come up for ourselves to do. There are little check marks beside the things that we've already accomplished, which are no small feat. Regional housing market analysis, for one, that was largely helped. One of our partners, the city of Greensboro, really came in on that and got that taken care of for us. That was quite a coup. We're going to, working through our partners to do the fair housing equity assessment as well, which is required by the HUD project. And we also need to focus on social equity, green infrastructure. You see information about the GI inventory that includes inventory on working lands, farmlands, and forestry lands as well. Some raising local awareness, the regional summit we've already done. I mentioned that earlier, where we did our rebranding project. Taking place there. Your webinar. All right, and mentioning green infrastructure, in the next 2 days, on Thursday, we're going to have a green infrastructure webinar where we actually have about 59 participants signed up to find out what we're doing in the green infrastructure work group on that inventory. We'd had a survey that we left open online for about 4 months now to gain a perspective on how our region sees green infrastructure and the importance of not only the actual forests and protected lands, but our farmlands and local foods and whatnot. We want to get a pretty good idea of what people are thinking when they think of green infrastructure, and not surprisingly, water resources and water quality comes up to the top every time. So we'll be presenting that on Thursday. You can visit our website to find out about it if you want to sign up.
Okay, let me turn it over to Paul Crone now.
Thank you, Mark. As our Piedmont Together initiative has started to move into our 3rd year home stretch, there are several themes that have surfaced concerning what we've been calling implementation strategies. The 5 here are some of the top ones, although we certainly have others that we could share with you and we'll be working on over the next few months. The first one is about strengthening each of the communities in our region. The second is then, in turn, making sure that we're doing a good job linking all of our communities together. Thirdly, to make a better connection between all of the educational resources that we have in our region with the kind of job clusters and sectors that are starting to come up to the surface at this point after a fairly extensive 10 to 20 year downturn in our local economy. We've also spent a lot of time and energy looking at the whole fresh foods, healthy foods network issue with a vision for seeing a really robust set of connections throughout our whole region. And then the fifth one we'd like to talk with you about today is the importance of preparing for severe climate events, especially in the future, but also in the present. So I'd like to just spend a little bit of time going through each one of these different themes. One of our primary themes is the importance of strengthening all the communities in our 12-county region, whether they're large or small or urban or rural. And some of the key investments that we're making in this arena include what we've been referring to as a toolkit of best practices for helping our local governments make more sustainable investments and choices around housing and transportation, economic development, and environmental conservation. Coupled with this toolkit that we are in the process of developing, we're also using the momentum that we've gained through our EPA Building Blocks grant for sustainable design and development that Kyle mentioned earlier, to implement a series of downtown design and development workshops in 6 of our communities in the region. And we're using this initial set of workshops to begin to build the capacity among local design professionals here in our region in order to accomplish a more long-range vision that we have for this particular arena of being able to hold similar workshops in each of our 68 municipalities in coming years. So we're encouraging all of our communities to begin to identify for themselves at least one really good place, maybe we're calling it kind of like a pilot project, preferably in their downtown area or near it, and preferably including at least one potential brownfield redevelopment site. And we're asking each of these communities to begin to focus their planning and reinvestment and redevelopment efforts in creating a mixed-use, mixed housing, mixed income, multimodal, pedestrian-friendly redevelopment center. And our hope is that each of these centers will include a good mixture of housing, but also jobs and retail uses, as well as institutional uses, and that each of these uses will be within easy walking distance and will also be well connected to our public transportation systems. Which is a good segue into our next major theme, and that is linking our communities together. Our second theme focuses on the importance of weaving the health and well-being of the people in our communities throughout the region more closely together. And a few of the main implementation investments that we've been focused on is, number one, a network of multimodal transportation choices at a variety of levels, the state level, regional level, county and municipal levels, involving a variety of modes, including passenger rail and the importance of designing transit-oriented development around passenger rail stations, as well as potentially in the future kind of regional level hubs for transit, as well as local transit. And a really important part of our transportation network is the paratransit services that are provided to elderly and disabled people. We also focused a lot on the importance of sidewalks and bike lanes and all the way down to the recreational trails and greenways component of our community building efforts. We're also emphasizing the importance of making strategic investments in broadband, 4G in particular, and we've just recently completed a plug-in electric vehicle regional master plan in hopes that we can begin to make some strategic investments in those two networks. We've undertaken the development of a comprehensive economic development strategy, or what they call a CED, C-E-D-S, as one of the key ways to begin to build stronger ties among our economic development, our workforce development, and our education institutions. One of the really good shining examples in our region here recently was the establishment of a regional career academy which serves trainees in 4 of our 12 counties. And the idea behind this is to better pair students with high demand employment opportunities in our region, some of which include, as Mark mentioned earlier, healthcare, but also there seems to be a real demand for machinists that are trained using CAD design and other computerized systems. We've also initiated some dialogue with several of our major community foundations. In fact, a couple of representatives from one foundation actually came down with us to New Orleans recently for the sponsored meetings there. And the idea behind this is that we're really trying to begin to explore the formation of some regional partnerships that will be able to focus on, in particular, leadership and entrepreneurial small business development, especially among our minority and low and moderate income populations. Our 4th theme revolves around establishing this fresh and healthy food network. We've used this initiative to make some strategic investments to begin to identify and map all of the farmers markets in our region, as well as the food deserts in which people just don't have access to healthy food throughout our region. We've initiated efforts to link multiple nonprofit organizations, such as a group called the Piedmont Grown, with other public health departments and ag extension and soil and water conservation district folks, local farming groups, and other groups that we're encouraging them to begin exploring opportunities to establish a regional local food network to better connect local farmers and processors with local restaurants and food co-ops, grocery stores, farmers markets, and individual families throughout our region. Our 5th theme focused on the importance of having good planning and preparation for key climate events, what we call severe climate events. One of the things that we completed recently was a region-wide environmental justice study as part of areas that are most at risk for various flooding and other potential severe climate events, both now and in the future. Our planning horizon is the year 2040, or about 25 years from now. In addition, our ongoing regional scenario modeling efforts include a wide range of environmental constraints, or what we're referring to as solutions, in which we've begun to set up this model and the existing conditions. On-the-job staff training to be able to understand and run these fairly complex models. And we intend to use this to provide sophisticated modeling assistance to support our individual community planning efforts throughout our region. So the idea would be that each local plan will in turn begin to inform citizens and elected officials about the importance of balancing social equity and environmental justice issues with economic and environmental interests. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark to give you kind of some wrap-up remarks.
Okay. It's difficult to talk about a 3-year project that you're a little bit over halfway done and created a lot of information within about 40 minutes, which we did. But our goal was to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the things that we've done, some of the information that we've gathered, and to give you some sense of things that we might be doing from an implementation step moving forward, and some things that we have left to do within this program. So that was part of our goal and our mission and our purpose here. The other purpose was, if that's had a chance to kind of soak in, we want to try to have some dialogue in terms of programs that you all are involved with, and if you're thinking of things that may be of assistance to us, we would like to hear from you all about that, as well as just hear individual comments about the project, or maybe something sparked, are you also doing this, or you should be, and if we are, we can give you a little bit more information about that. If we're not, then that may be something that we can consider doing somewhere in the future. So I think probably the best way to try this is to start here within the room, and then I'm going to call upon individuals, and I'm going to try unmuting you in hopes that you would be able to respond so everyone can hear you. So not to put Randy on the spot, so I'll start with Emily. we'll go Randy, and then you want in terms of maybe some comments and thoughts here within the room.
Well, thank you, Mark. Of course, HUD carries out a lot of programs. We have a number of program offices in HUD, including PIH and community planning and development and multifamily housing. And I guess the question that comes to mind, or the thought that comes to mind, and I think that we've talked about this in some other elements of sort of offshoots of this project, is the involvement of our entitlement communities in your programs, i.e. some of your green infrastructure programs, or the involvement of public housing authorities. And do you see that that's something that might encompass a future initiative, or have you explored it, or would you like to? And if you would, I'd certainly be happy to put you in touch with staff in the Greensboro field office.
Yeah, I know there was some original outreach. I think there's 10 communities within the region.
Seems a bit high, but
some number.
Could be right.
I think it's a bit high, too.
Okay. Well, then less is better, maybe. I think there was some initial outreach there, but I think as we get into hopefully preparing a regional analysis of impediments, that we will do that outreach. Bill McNeil works with our housing group, and we have a contractor, some local folks that are doing some of the heavy lifting on that, so we'll certainly bring that up to them.
And I know our CPD director, Gary Dimmick, who wanted to attend. I don't know if there were an electronic impediment to logging into the meeting today, would be very, very interested in working with you on that.
Okay.
Has the regional analysis of impediments guidelines come out yet?
Not yet.
Well, one of the things we talked about with Dwayne Marsh when we were in New Orleans was exactly what you just brought up, Emily, the importance of coordinating among all the different entitlement communities, as well as our non-entitlement communities. And we've had preliminary conversations with 3 of our biggest cities, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, who have all said, at least in concept, that they like the idea of doing a regional AI. Winston's a little less excited about it just because they just finished theirs, but I think the idea would be, well, let's figure out a way over the next few years to begin to sort of line up our schedules for, redoing the AI. And if we can find some economies of scale and some efficiencies by doing one regional AI that really does a good job, and then let each of our entitlement communities as well as non-entitlement use that, then we think that's great. So we're looking forward to the guidelines, and as Mark already said, we're pretty far along in our FHEA, but we're looking forward to having this other piece that will allow us to better strategize about key investments that we can make in infrastructure and other community building elements, so that, for instance, that we have a dream of being able to use CDBG block grant funds in a way that are really targeted and really help to unify an area so that we're really having the biggest bang for the buck, and it's not just sort of being spread across the landscape. So we're hoping that will be a start of something good.
I think it will. I think those are great things to start thinking about now, and then like I said, I will help you, as you want to work with people. Another thing is public housing, the Choice Neighborhoods program. Of course, I don't think we have one in Choice Neighborhoods grantee in the Triad. There are 4 in North Carolina now. Durham is the most recent. There's Durham, Wilmington, Wilson, and Salisbury. And there's a real overlap, I see, in sustainability issues, initiatives, and Choice Neighborhood initiatives. They focus on people, neighborhoods, education, but there are a lot of our very similar approaches. Let's look at walking trails. Let's look at health issues that are sort of underlying of those. So I see liaisons between sustainability grantees and Choice Neighborhood grantees as being very, very important in the future.
Exciting idea.
Randy?
Well, I guess I just say thanks for inviting me here. I do feel like you guys push off on you. I'm probably coming in about the business here, but nonetheless, again, I'm glad to be a part of the discussion. You mentioned earlier on that most of the growth and opportunities are in and around Forsyth and Guilford County, and I certainly agree with that. As you might imagine, by virtue of our name, we're rural development, so we're responsible for enhancing, improving the quality of life in those rural areas. The 12 counties that you mentioned, the Guilford and Forsyth are the 2 that we would least likely be able to assist a whole lot, except for around the peripheral out in the county. But all these other 10 counties, we can affect a lot of change in those counties, and we're doing so across rural North Carolina, particularly as it relates to housing. I don't know that we're going to be able to do a whole lot with transportation, but I did see 2 areas, jobs and housing. I think we'd be able to help. We have a business and industry program where conventional lenders extend credit, and we provide the loan note guarantees for any business that you might be courting or trying to get to come into any of these communities. And then we have what we call an IRP. It's an intermediary lending program where intermediaries are formed, and we extend credit to them, and they in turn relend the dollars. So if you got a training program at the community colleges or vocational schools or wherever, so that a person's perhaps training to be a small engine repair person, they've lost a job and decide they're going to start working on motorcycles, lawnmowers, go-karts, and so forth, and they need $50,000 to get up and go into the shell building or whatever. We can use our intermediary dollars to help with things like that. We have a 502 housing program where Congress appropriate dollars directly to us to assist rural families to obtain, that's either purchase new or existing homes. We have a 504 program where we can help current homeowners to do repairs up to $27,500 if, in fact, that family is in a very low income bracket if they're age 62. If they're in a very low income bracket and not age 62, we can do up to $20,000 at 1% over 20 years in the way of a loan. And then we have our guarantee program that's at 90% guarantee to any conventional lender that's willing to extend 100% credit to a family. We provide them with a 90% loan guarantee, and I'll tell you that for the last 3 years, that's been a $1 billion program for us across North Carolina. So we really do think we can help with housing type concerns here in these areas.
Yeah, that's I purposely didn't talk a lot about our rural areas because I knew that you would. There's also the other philosophy of knowing your audience and maybe I should have talked about our rural areas more, but without a doubt, Randy, I mean, we are very sensitive and very cognizant that I use the analogy of a puzzle, and if one of those puzzle pieces, i.e. one of our rural counties or smaller communities, is missing from that puzzle, the picture is not complete and the puzzle is not as strong. We've done, I think, a yeoman's job kind of reaching out to these communities. They do struggle with seeing how they are going to benefit and seeing how they can be, part of this kind of regional effort. Some of that is because cities and towns are so strapped financially to begin with, and some of it is because their staff just doesn't have the capability. But that's one of the great things about having now a combined regional council that can be very strong in terms of helping those individual communities with that. We try very hard when we're doing our working group meetings to actually go to other counties and to some of the smaller places to not only give us a view of the rest of the region, but also sort of show some of that outreach. But that is one of our struggles, is kind of connecting. And then when you think about a Montgomery and Caswell County that may feel like a county on its own little island, and they too have struggles just from a geographic standpoint. Which region am I a part of? Who, where's my best luck at? The other example I like to give is Elkin, which is there on the edge of Surrey and Yankton over on the western edge. They talk about being economically linked to Winston-Salem, but socially linked to the west. So they have a split regional personality, so we feel for places like that. But the one reason that we mentioned the mill villages and the 68 cities and towns and the economy is because, as you know, each of these smaller communities have some sort of asset in some sort of abandoned manufacturing facility. And the reality is 1,000 jobs aren't going to come back, but gosh, wouldn't it be great if 100 could? And how important it would be for those communities to be able to sort of fill that void. So we do talk about that a lot, and that's where we're hoping some of the charrettes will start some thinking in some of these smaller communities too about what they could be and hopefully what they are. But knowing the assets that you just pointed out is a tremendous help for us too.
Well, you guys joked about rural development having money early on in this city today, and in years past, particularly when I first became state director, we were operating with our dollars, so stimulus dollars, and again, on average, we've been running about a $2 billion program for the last 3 years. But we've come to realize, our funds are appropriated by Congress, and so we've come to realize that tight times like these, partnerships and collaboration is going to be the thing to do. And by and large, in those rural areas, we work closely with the Rural Center and their STEP program. We work with the Backer Trust and Golden Leaf, and anybody else that's willing to partner with us on our housing programs. We work very closely with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. And so, and early on I mentioned that we administer about 43 programs. It doesn't happen so much here in the Piedmont area, but in some of the far western parts of the state and far eastern parts of the states, we've been able to do some broadband, some fiber optic wiring that's going to allow for high-speed internet in some of those areas. We did about 7 different projects to a total of about $243 million. So where you find out in the truly hinterlands of these 12 counties a need for high-speed internet, we can help with those kinds of things as well through some of the telephone membership corporations.
Juana?
Hey, I don't have a lot of funding programs to talk about, unfortunately. Most of what we do, and particularly my office, is working through both the state DOT and the MPOs. So, one question that I thought of as I was listening to your presentation really has a lot to do with what partnerships have you established with the MPOs in the area. I mean, you have 3 big MPOs in the Piedmont area.
Actually, 4.
Yeah, actually. Oops. Yeah. So, what partnerships have you established with them? And actually, we've been in the mindset of thinking about performance measures as of late, particularly since the passage of MAP 21, and everything is really linked to system performance. So my question was, how can you identify these 5 themes that you've identified, and looking at them, I can see aspects of transportation in every single one of them, because we kind of weave throughout everything. Have you thought about establishing some performance metrics associated with these themes that you've identified? And then based on that, are there specific projects that may already be in the statewide program or in the MPO tips that can connect and can help with the implementation of some of these themes? And if that's the case, can you talk to your MPOs and to the state DOT or to your NCDOT divisions about, in their prioritization process, would it be possible for them to appoint some of those extra points in prioritization to those projects that support the things that have been identified? So, I'm really thinking about how we can use some of the existing programs and resources that are in place to help with help support the 5 theme areas that you guys have identified, and what we may be able to do in terms of existing resources to help with the ultimate implementation of the goals that have been identified through the work that you've done thus far.
Yeah, those are all great points and questions and suggestions. We do have a mobility work group that met fairly frequently back about a year ago, and we've recently sort of reconvened that working group, and we'll be reconvening some of our other working groups. We have outreached to our MPOs and have gotten some assistance from them, I'll say. Our 2 big work programs for that mobility working group is, one is to create a regional transportation plan. And it's essentially going to be a cataloging of existing elements that are out there. Everybody has their their CTP, comprehensive transportation plan. We have a regional transit plan. We have data and information on sidewalks, bikeways throughout the whole region. The state has a tiered system in terms of regional, sub-regional projects. So a lot of it is just going to be a mapping effort in terms of identifying all of these and maybe understanding which ones are, and coming up with some criteria for what might be considered regional, which again, state has done work on that, and Julie Hunkins, who was on the call, has done a great deal of outreach to her folks there in terms of making sure that they're aware and having some involvement. And then in terms of performance measures, yes, HUD is all about performance measures in terms of the grant project itself, but they've also developed something called their flagship indicators, which the 2011 grantees have to monitor and keep track of. We are going to try to do that on a voluntary basis ourselves. The reason being is that if all the other 98 regions across the country use these flagship indicators, then we can start to compare, if you like to compare. Some days it's good to compare yourself to others, some days it's not. But you can at least kind of see where other folks are, so we will be doing that. The main indicator that we use, or that we will probably use as it relates to transportation, is that cost of housing and transportation, and to see if there can be some ratcheting down of that percentage. I tell folks when I'm talking about the project, if we could affect both housing and transportation, only change that number by 5%, that's a 5% raise for everyone. And how powerful could that be? And it's going to have to be a combination, because we're not going to reach a low-cost transportation option to everyone. And everyone can't live in low-cost housing. It's just not possible. So it is going to be a combination of those two. But of course, the other one would be mode share. If we can do something to decrease I think 95% of the people The majority of the trips are made single occupancy. So there's something we can do to drive that down even a couple percentage points. That would help.
Yeah, I hope that, I thought STA was going to be participating by phone today, but I guess for whatever reason they weren't able to. But I think that they'd be able to provide some support and at least some information to you guys to help with moving the project along.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that was, you didn't have to have money to come to the table in this case. But just resources and information and thoughts, like you said, I think we are sometimes so deep down into the weeds, it's hard to really see where some help might be.
One other thing I did want to mention, based on, I guess, what you said in terms of one of the outcomes or desired outcomes of the mobility working group. Well, first, let me say, I don't know if you, I know you mentioned that Julie is on that working group. If you want Federal Highway to participate on that, then just add me to the list, and I'll be glad to help with supporting that working group as well. But on the mapping effort, I mean, NCDOT's GIS unit, has a lot of really good resources available. And one of the Everyday Count 2, which is the FHWA initiative, EDC2, one of our initiatives under that is geospatial data collection. And so there may be something that we might be able to do in terms of linking this project to like the EDC2 initiative. So I'm going to look into that and see if there's something that we may be able to do from that perspective.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I know Julie's on the phone, so she may have something else to add from the transportation perspective. But
part of the, or let me back up and say, well, one of the things that we proposed in the grant that is coming true is that the regional council sort of becomes the center point for data for the region. We are custodians for our travel demand model for within the region and would maintain that. But we are trying to, get, all GIS layers consistent and, usable for our regional partners and things of that nature. And I know they have already put together all the CTP maps, for the region. And, we have some other data layers there, but we can always use help, with more data and mapping. Before I leave the room, Randy, there was a question from someone here, so be interested to hear more about broadband program at USDA.
Well, it's where oftentimes what we're trying to do is assist rural communities, particularly farmers and feed and seed stores and those kinds of things. Even folks that are selling produce out there, we want you to be able to market your wares in real time. It's also done for the benefit of our students out there. It's kind of hard for our kids to compete if in fact a school essentially is located, let's just say in Stokes County, and it's about centerways the county, and half the kids are able to do internet type things from the Winston-Salem side of the county in the evening, and on the other side are not able to do homework. And so the Secretary of Agriculture and the President, this administration, is concerned about rural communities that do not have the capabilities and the abilities to have high-speed internet and as opposed to dial-up, and that you just simply can't compete in a global economy when you're still dealing with dial-up. So we've got broadband dollars available to assist with putting fiber optic wire in the ground.
So those dollars are implementation type dollars that are stuck on the ground? Okay.
That's right.
And Randy, I have a question about that too, because I thought also even maybe in rural, an area that's not classified as rural, but if the population is low, like in a small community, there's a public housing authority, could you assist them in that?
Well, we could. I mean, the dollars could be used for that, but it's primarily because again, we're dealing with those small telephone co-ops, and it'd be a matter of whether they saw that as a wise investment for such a small group of folks. They rather spread it around because there is some cost associated with it, and they want to make sure it's going to be worth their while. So as long as they're willing to do something like that, then we'd be willing to do it. The dollars can be used for that.
Yeah, the North Carolina Department of Commerce
that's right.
has a program that's doing the sort of planning, planning part of the broadband, and it sounds like you have some implementation dollars.
They have what they call first mile, and then we did middle mile and final mile.
Okay, right.
Broadband dollars.
Okay. One of the things that we have sort of identified, and sometimes on a 3-year project, things get fixed before you can get to them, before you can even make them a recommendation. But, we were hearing from some of our local farmers and some of our local chefs that they were having trouble communicating. Local chefs, email, our farmer out there not really connected. So, they want to be able to connect better so they know that, I've got this vegetable that's going to be ready, so I can get it in my restaurant. So that was sort of one of the areas we were targeting a broadband study to help close a communication gap that's also an economic development piece.
Absolutely. I've got a gentleman here who's my specialist, a guy by the name of Carey, Patrick Carey, and he works out of Mooresville, near Statesville. And if you're interested in any of this, I'll leave a card with you. And if you're interested in any of these you're working with, you just let me know, and I'll get you linked up with Pat. And
okay. Yeah, that'd be great. We're going to try to go to some of our folks that are on the call here. And I know from your questions and comments as I've been monitoring here that there has been some, the audio has some people haven't been able to connect, some have been going in and out. I apologize for the technical difficulties. But I'm going to first of all start at the top of my list here and unmute, try to unmute Anne Keller. Anne, can you hear me? And can you respond? Anne? Back out at the top, is it not taking it? Yeah, Anne, I'm sorry, we're trying to take it off mute and it just doesn't seem to be working. Let's try.
Julie's unmuted.
Yeah, Julie, can you hear me?
I think, yes, I can. There is a little bit intermittent at times.
Yeah, okay. Since we got you on the line, do you want to make any comments, add on?
Yeah, I guess, you were asking about questions, and I'm not sure that I've actually asked you this before, but we've recently had some a state law passed that asks that the MPOs and RPOs have their local project prioritization process for transportation projects defined, their process outlined and written down and that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, in your discussions with the MPOs and RPOs, and in particular for some of your regionally significant projects, are you all thinking in terms of what you're coming up with, in terms of your priorities for sustainable development in your region, and how that might be incorporated into the transportation project prioritization process?
Yeah, I think Ioana touched on that earlier too, and I forgot about that point. I think we very much want, and I think USDOT and their Tiger program gives some credit for the grantees that are working on these programs. It's certainly one of my hopes is that once these 90-some regions have these plans, that there's some real payoff, and some of that payoff could be by projects getting extra points if they're consistent with a regional plan. So I think that is very much so.
I guess what I'm envisioning, I guess my question is more not in terms of necessarily points in terms of the overall state, but points in terms of which projects are bubbling up from a regional perspective for you all, and having those projects be consistent with what the region is saying is important for sustainable development. Your 6 areas that you all have highlighted.
Right. Yeah, I think we haven't had any in-depth conversations about it. I think right now is that I would hope to be able to get to that. before the end of our planning process. But if nothing else, we'll have the inventory and we'll have the map. The next step would be to do some sort of prioritization, whether they're individual projects or categories of projects, that add to the sustainability picture. I say if we get to it, it's great. If not, then that I think certainly should become one of the implementation items that we look at.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Just looking forward to getting more involved in the mobility work group and seeing what the specific products are and how that all shakes out.
Okay. I'm going to mute you, and we're trying to get, Anne.
What? Yeah, I guess
we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that the second time or whatever, I didn't do the pound 113 or whatever it was. I've been listening and actually wrote down some notes to send you in case I couldn't actually get to you. Just so you know that the FEMA folks also have been listening, and they may be able to try to give you some ideas too. I know that they had some challenges with technical stuff, but hopefully they're on still. A couple of things that came to mind, and they'll require further discussion and thought between us and folks at EPA here in Atlanta. But one of the interesting projects that my colleagues in the Water Division are doing, which started, I believe, in Tennessee, but now has some legs in Georgia and maybe somewhere else in the Southeast, is an energy efficiency evaluation at wastewater and drinking water plants. What I remember of the conversations and presentations I've seen is that I think about an average of 25 to 30% of the cost of a drinking water or wastewater treatment plant is connected to energy use. And they've done this program where they go in and work with a plant, do an evaluation of how they've set all the pumps and all the other things in the process up. They kind of do with state agency cooperation. It's all done together. Kind of go in and do, if you will, kind of an audit or an evaluation, and then they suggest some things that could be done to improve the energy efficiency of the effort, hopefully get them to implement some of those, and then come back later on and evaluate. And I know that in the Tennessee work they did, they actually were very successful in identifying things, some of which weren't that expensive. The one that comes to my mind was they had one of the plants had a pump that was aerating one of the lagoons, and it was running, I think there were 3 of them that were running pretty much 24 hours a day. And they went in and said, you've already got this water saturated. You probably could turn one of those off and not lose anything relative to getting enough air in the water to do its job. And they did, and they saved something like, I think over the year, if I remember right, it might have been as much as $100,000. But in any event, it was a good chunk of money just by really going back through and looking at it. The other thing they realized is that most of the treatment plant folks, if maybe even none of them, have no access to the bills. They don't see any of the costs. They don't see any of it. So there's no feedback loop in there. And they started looking at that and saying, if these folks really saw the bills and had ideas, they've not come up with ideas to help them improve that. So there's just one thought that might be interesting to explore as to whether there's interest in your 12 counties. And another one that I was thinking of has to do with the State Revolving Loan Fund. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's also related to water. A lot of it is, low-cost loans that are used by communities to improve their treatment facilities, to do some other stuff. And there's been some focus on green investments around that lately. These are probably similar to some of the USDA infrastructure loans that I don't think I heard Randy mention, but they're out there as well, that are really low interest rate. And I mean, I know USDA, for example, has some that are 40 years and almost like 1%, something really small. I don't know right offhand what ours are, but I know that that's another thing. And if EPA funds those to the state, But we also have a very innovative person who manages our end of it at EPA. She's got great ideas about how some things can be done and how you can connect pieces up. And she's very willing and interested in working with people to have good outcomes. So, you know, right off the bat, those are two. And the third one was, I'm not sure if you guys have ever worked with the Southeast Diesel Collaborative, but this is an organization of state agencies, businesses, nonprofits, you know, ports, all kinds of people, and EPA is a part of it, that looks to see how you can do better with your energy relative to, for example, retrofitting diesel so you don't spew so much out into the atmosphere. You're improving air quality. Or on the other end of it, plugging them in when they idle at rest stops or wherever else to decrease the impact on the air. And that's another element. Sometimes there's been funding for retrofits and other kinds of things. So I would, just off the top of my head, they fit into different categories of the priorities that you have, but they might be worth us further investigating as you get down to some more specifics. And we can talk about that, you know, some other time when we get there.
Anne, are you familiar with the Solar Center at NC State?
Not right up here, I have to admit. I'm sure somebody at EPA is, but I'm not.
Okay, yeah. They do sort of the same sort of thing here within the state, and have a traveling meeting to various regions about that, the whole you know, alternative fuel type of situation. So I had not heard about them, so we'll kind of check into that. We'll see if folks over at state are aware of that. So okay, I'm going to put you back on mute, and we'll see if we can't get else unmuted. Gene, can you hear us? Are you there? We've unmuted you. If you have your phone muted, you could unmute if you had any comments or thoughts. He's self-muted.
Yes, press the star one, but I think that's the problem Anne was having.
Star 11.
I don't know. Maybe Anne.
Yeah.
Chat pod or something.
Yeah, Gene. Someone reminded us maybe to use the audio. Try entering pound 113 pound.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for helping organize it there. Okay. Let me see. Gene's got a. Well. I think that we're just having some technical issues getting our other folks that are offline, online on the phone call connected in here. Let me just let me do this. We appreciate your patience with all this technology, and hope that you've been able to listen in and hear a great deal of it. I have made an attempt to record it so we can make that available to you. Also sent out an email this morning as a reminder that had the PowerPoint in there. Let me just say, let me give a big thank you to Emily Williams as well as Anne Keller. Say they have been a big help to us and helped arrange this particular federal partner update. So a special shout out to them. Hannah Cockburn, who's been on the call too, is also part of our project team and very involved with that, our whole project. And we have a number of people that are paid through the grant to help get this done, but also we have a lot of people that are volunteering to help get all this work done. Everything that we do is put out on our webpage, project webpage at triadsustainability.org. any of the reports that you saw that were done, or results from civic forums or anything, you can click around and find that information there. There's also a general email list that is being part of this federal partner update. I will add you to our general email update list. And as with any email list, if you find you get too many, just opt out. We have a little bit over 1,000 people on our email list, so we feel like we keep in good contact there. Then we also use a tool called Piedmont Voice, which is kind of an online town hall. It is a software that was developed by a company called MindMixer, and there are a couple of the grantees around the country are using it. It is a way to pose questions and have people do comments. It's kind of an interactive visual type of blog, but we use that too for some surveying. We post questions out there. We posted the results of our first round of civic forums out there and tried to get people engaged that way. So that is kind of another tool that we use. Again, to circle back around, with such a large region, both geographically, a number of people, a number of media markets, outreach is very tough. We have not done a whole lot with the media because of that. We know everyone's not plugged in electronically either, and that's why we try to go out and do some of these things in the community as well. So any comments that you happen to have that you couldn't get in as part of the questions or as part of our technology challenges, please feel free to email me those thoughts and questions and what have you, and we will do our best to try to keep you involved. And as you hear about things that are going on here, if you can pass along information, we would certainly appreciate it. And with that, I'll call the webinar closed, and just to thank everyone for participating again. Have a good afternoon.